Hi, welcome to Portia's Place, where you'll never wine alone. We're still here and enjoying some time with my mom. Welcome, Vonetta.
Thank you so much.
All right, so listen, this is going to be a special tasting and one that my mom will enjoy both wines versus what you've seen in the previous two, where some were maybe iffy. But remember, she's a sweet wine drinker. So for those of you that love sweet wines, you're going to really kind of gauge what she's saying when she talks about these wines and how she feels about them. I do too enjoy sweet wines, but I am more of a dry wine drinker. But this is going to be a real treat because today's Viola Vino, when we get to that, we'll focus on sweet wine. So let's get started. We're going to wrap up this very special series, I would like to say launch, where we're celebrating my grandmother, Catherine Portia, the namesake for Portia's Place. And so let's get started talking a little bit about Granny. And we have actually three generations of piano players between Granny, you, and me. We all play. I do differ from the two of you. I never played for a choir where you both did, but we all play, and it was very important to Granny that I learned how to play the piano. So I'd like to know who taught Granny how to play the piano and the organ.
Well, first, she didn't learn to play until she was an adult. It was something she'd always wanted to learn to do. So she took piano lessons in the 1940s from Mrs. Annie Copeland and learned to play the organ about 20 years later when the church purchased an organ, and the company they purchased it from would provide a teacher to teach two people how to play the organ at the church. And so that's when she learned how to play the organ.
Who was her teacher?
Oh, Miss Essie Clark. The store provided her. She was hired by the store to come out and teach the organ.
Okay. And let me ask you this, because I know that she did play for some churches, or at least one church. And what church was that, Mom?
The church she played for the longest was Olive Branch Baptist Church, and it was Nansemond County, now Suffolk, and in her community. She played for them for over 25 years. She also, at some point in the 1950s, that I don't remember, but she formed a youth choir and played for them at her home church, Stony Branch Baptist Church in Gates, North Carolina. And she occasionally played at other churches as requested. Occasionally somebody would need a fill-in musician or something, and she did play at a few other churches.
Interesting. And you know your daughter, and I love bringing up good stories. So there's also a special connection between her playing for the church choir at Olive Branch and another grandmother of mine. And so why don't you tell the story, or what that special connection is that resulted from Granny playing for the choir at Olive Branch and my other grandmother, Grandma Annie Mae.
Okay, so since you want to talk about that, your grandfather, Reverend Freddie Jackson, became pastor of Olive Branch Baptist Church in the mid-60s. I was a child at the church, and he had a son who would accompany them to church. And I met the son, and the son liked me. And 12, 13 years later, we married.
Well, what do you know? One does never see. Listen, we always joke about, not joke about it, but we're very serious about it. We don't believe in coincidence. And so I find that very interesting. I also think that there's a part to this story where my grandma Annie actually said one day, you never know, you could end up being my daughter-in-law, being in my family. Is that true, Mom?
And she did tell my mother that. She said, you never know how things work. Your daughter could end up being in my family one day. And when she said that, I was probably all of about 12 years old. And I just looked at her like, really?
Well, that happened.
It did happen.
It did happen.
About 12 years later, it really did happen. And I thought about that. And after that, I was saying, anything she tells me, I will believe.
I feel the same, and I know that my cousins do as well. We've had many conversations that whatever Grandma Annie said, it was the truth.
It
was
happened.
the gospel, and it happened. It
yes.
did. It did happen. So that's really interesting, and it's amazing with that music. Now, I do have to ask you this. So, Granny played. Did you want to play the piano and organ as well? Was that something that you wanted to do, or was that something that she told you you wanted to do?
Well, you can answer that question too. When I was 7 years old, she told me I was going to take piano lessons, and she took me to take piano lessons.
Okay.
And I took piano lessons for a number of years, and then I took a couple of years of organ lessons, because by that time I think I had started to play for the church.
Okay.
And so I needed to have organ lessons in order to do that.
Such talent. We do get her to play some Christmas carols at Christmas time on the piano sometimes.
And that's about it.
That's really cool. Actually, Mom and Dad still have a piano in their house she probably would like me to take. I just don't know where I would put it here, but the piano's in really good condition. They actually had it tuned in preparation for a milestone birthday that I had, and my very good friend, shout out to Terry Butler, actually played that piano as a part of my birthday celebration, and it was played very well.
Yes, it was.
It was.
It
Anyway,
was indeed.
I digress, but that's really interesting. Music is such I think, a big part of our lives. We love music, all kinds of music. That's something I feel like I've definitely passed on to Jeffrey, his love of music as well, and all kinds of music, and going to concerts, and we just love music, and she did too. I remember all the records that she had, and all the different kinds of records. It just wasn't one kind. She had some I couldn't listen to, because I remember she had a few Red Fox albums in there as well, and I only knew him from TV, Sanford and Son, but of course I could never listen to those. But musically, she had a lot of music, and with the piano, it just always was music in the house, and Granddaddy had the guitar and the accordion, and it was just music. It's important. It's important. So very good. So listen, we talked a little bit about that. I'd also like you to talk a little, Mom, about Granny's community involvement, because I find that also to be very interesting. I remember some of that with her in the summers that I was there. But talk to me a little bit about her community involvement and how important that was to her.
Okay, well, we'll start with her involvement in church. And I will say this, everything that she did was based, I believe, on her faith in God and the relationship that she had with God, in belief that she was serving God through serving others. And so that was the root of, I think, just about everything she did was her faith and her belief that she should be doing this. So she served in more than one church because she attended my father's church as well as the church where she was a member, as well as the church where she played the piano. So she was involved in missions ministry, youth ministry, and any fundraisers that they had, she participated. Now for the community. She was involved in so much that I'm sure I have forgotten some of the things that she did, but she was a member of the Civic League, the NAACP, the 4-H Club, the Home Demonstration Group, which included sewing classes. She worked at the polls on election day. She was on the PTA council and any other cause in the neighborhood that needed petitions signed or fundraising. And then finally, her last thing was her senior citizens group that she really, really enjoyed participating with, probably the last 15 years that she was healthy.
Yes. Even though she wouldn't admit she was a senior citizen.
No, because she never told her age.
She would never tell her age. She would never admit she was a senior citizen. But she was out there with the senior citizens. And she did. She really enjoyed that. And I think I always felt like she thought she was the youngest of the senior citizens. Like she was the one, I'm the young one here, in the group. But she really enjoyed, and the times that I was there with her, she really enjoyed participating with them. You're absolutely right. And we didn't talk a lot about, her sewing, but she could certainly sew. I have her sewing machine here, as you know, and I love just walking past, looking at it, just thinking about my time sewing, but the things that she could do sewing. And again, that's another connection I find to be so interesting, that parallel between Granny and Grandma Viola. The talent there when it came to
Sewing.
just sewing and craft, and the ability. Remember those Granny was painting one time? Remember those pictures she painted?
I still have them.
Just the craft, and I don't know, it's just it's so interesting. I know you sometimes say it skipped me and went to you, Travita, but listen, I think it's so interesting, and we could delve deeper into that and how so many of those things were passed down, I think, to us out of necessity.
True.
Needing to be able to do those things so that our families had things. So I think it's something, and I think she definitely made a difference. I can remember it almost seemed like when she would walk into the room and saying whatever she was saying, and looking at some of the other seniors that were there, and they would just light up. She definitely brought an energy and spirit with her that was captivating, if with all of her 5-foot self. So that's something else. So let's move on a little bit, because I don't want to. We could have a whole episode about this, but I want to talk a little bit about her travels, because I think that it was just so interesting to me. And I also think that it really laid a foundation for me, because while I didn't know it, to watch her go on trips and to travel places, I assumed that everybody's granny did that. But that certainly was not the case. And so if you don't mind, I know she took so many trips, but if you wouldn't mind, Mom, just kind of talking to us a little bit about her travels.
Well, her first travels took her to New York. She had a cousin who had moved to New York, and she wanted to go to New York to see her, and see New York too. So that was in the late 40s, early 50s. And so she went there, and that started her traveling to New York. She would go every few years and visit her cousins who lived there. In the mid-60s was the World's Fair in the mid-60s. And so I finally got to go as well and go with her on one of her trips to New York. And again, like you said, well, I'll get back to that in a minute. So she went to New York.
And Mama, hold on a second. When you went with her to the World's Fair, um, that's the World's Fair in New York. That was that the beginning for the It's a Small World?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about
Walt
that.
Disney's contribution to the World's Fair was the It's a Small World. And I guess it was such a huge success that they disassembled it and took it to Disneyland. Disney World did not exist at the time. They disassembled it and took it to Disneyland and reassembled it, and it became part of their permanent exhibitions, I guess you would say, at Disneyland. But and another interesting thing about the World's Fair, that's where the Mustang was introduced. The Mustang came out that year, and they had one on display. I can still see it on the little pedestal turning around, but it was a huge deal. I did not realize it at the time. But the 1964, 65, I can't remember, Ford Mustang became a huge deal later on. And when I thought back, I was like, I saw that from the beginning.
From the
I
beginning.
was 10 years old. What did I know?
No, I tell you, that's something else. And then I know that Granny bought something for you, I believe, that you brought home from the World's Fair, because I used to listen to it on my record player. I believe, I hope I got that right. Did you get a little record?
Oh, It's a Small World.
Yes, It's a Small World.
I probably did.
You
yes.
did. And I found that in your box of records. You know, one summer when I was there listening to it and seeing your name written, and it was in a little book, you know, with the little 45 in it.
I had completely forgotten that, but if I had that, that is where it came from.
That's where it came from. Yeah, but that had to have been after my 8th birthday, because that's when I got that record player and took it with me everywhere. But I had found your records, and that's where I remember seeing that, and I was like, man, this is old looking. I remember that.
It was. Did you find Alvin and the Chipmunks too?
I did, and that's how I was also introduced. Look, to the Jackson 5 and the Sound of Philadelphia, and the stylistics. Like, I'm just thinking back because I listen to all your records all the time. But I digress. Very easy to do that.
Yes.
So listen, let's keep going. Let's talk a little bit more about the trip.
Traveling. So she also went to Philadelphia because my uncle lived there. Her brother lived there. So we visited him. And then we had family on Daddy's side of the family that went to Philadelphia.
Yes.
So we visited with them. Her first trip to Florida was in the mid-60s. She had a high school girlfriend that had moved to Miami. She and her family lived in Miami. Mama went and visited her. And then in 1970, she traveled with her cousins. They went to San Francisco and Las Vegas. And this was something we'd never heard of at the time. It was a prepaid, pre-planned trip. The airfare, hotels, and I think at least one meal per day had all been prepaid. And so they flew to San Francisco. They toured the city. She saw things that I just got to see the last few months. And after San Francisco, they went to Las Vegas, where they actually got to be extras in the audience of a TV show that was being filmed.
Look at that.
Look at that.
And listen, let me ask you this. Did I dream this? Didn't she get to meet Sammy Davis Jr.?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I thought I remembered that she met Sammy Davis Jr. on that trip. She also said that due to the low humidity there, her hair was in great form when she was in Las Vegas. I just remember that.
Even though it was hot. She
Right.
was hotter than she'd ever been in her life, but there was no humidity, so it didn't bother her hair.
All right. Keep going.
Where else? Wait a minute, San Francisco, Las Vegas. And, then in the early 1980s, I don't remember what year, but these same cousins who lived in New York went on a cruise to Bermuda. And so she went up to New York and cruised out of New York to Bermuda. Now, I have to say, now it's hard to meet anybody who has not been on a cruise that wanted to cruise.
Correct.
But at that time, The only thing we knew about cruising was what we saw on the Love Boat. We didn't know anybody who had been on a cruise.
I certainly didn't. I remember when she went. I remember that trip, and I had never heard of anyone going on a cruise ship, like you said, other than what you saw on
Only what we
TV
saw
on
on
the
the
Love
Love Boat.
Boat, right?
But she
Bermuda.
went on a cruise to Bermuda and brought back lots of pictures. I remember the flowers. I remember the perfume factory, and I can't remember what else, but I do remember that. And again with her cousins. And what else? What else? She got to go to Canada on a bus trip with the local group. She went to Florida a few times on bus trips with local groups that were traveling. She went to California to visit her brother. Her youngest brother, had moved to California in the late 60s. And so in the 80s, she made 2 or 3 visits out to California to see him.
And one of those times,
She took me.
She took you. That's right.
She did.
Your first trip to California. How
Yes.
was that, Mom?
It was nice. It was very nice. His wife made sure that we had a great vacation. She took us down to the pier at San Pedro. She took us, we went to Universal Studios. We went to Disneyland. And they drove us around on a tour of the Los Angeles Watts area.
Okay.
And where else did we go? I can't remember now, but they are the places that I can remember that they took us, and we had a great time.
Wow. Well, I remember that. Again, looking back on it, I don't think I had any friends at that time that I heard about their moms and grannies going on a trip together, but I remember that well. And what a big deal it was to travel like that and to go on trips like that. So listen, she again, she was such a trailblazer in doing certain things like that. And when I think about the probably small amount of money she earned being a cosmetologist, but Granny would have that little money and have her money and be ready to go.
She would save.
Her money. She would, so
She
that
would
she
save
could
her money so
take
she could
these
go on
trips.
trips.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Well, listen, this has been great. Let's transition over to Viola's Vino and have a little wine. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is going to probably be my mom's favorite tasting out of those that we have done in this series for Portia's Place. So we're going to start with a wine from Virginia, and it comes from Mermaid Winery. I won't go into the details, but I discovered this winery in the course of my in the course of my work, and I had never heard of this winery, and I asked Mom about it. I remember having this conversation on the phone. You were like, "I've never heard of that." I said, "Well, when I come home the next time, we'll go." And so this was one of the wines that we both really enjoyed. I would like to say that Mermaid Winery is a woman-owned winery, and it was actually Virginia's first urban winery. When we first visited this winery, she had a single location in Norfolk, but now they actually have a second location in Virginia Beach off of Shore Drive. I really, in addition to the great wine that's being produced there, the food's really good too. They really have a good kitchen. They offer wine flights, of course, wine by the glass and the bottle. Their Norfolk location started out in Ghent, but they've now moved over to Granby Street. I'm receiving no type of compensation from Mermaid Winery for this. I like their vibe. I like their wine. And this wine that we're going to taste first is the Beach Peach wine. It is actually, funny, a combination of peach and Chardonnay. I bet you didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not.
But she likes this wine. But it is a combination of peach and Chardonnay. I can't think of anything that's probably more refreshing in the summer months than a good juicy peach. And I think that this wine, while it is a peach wine, it's not too sweet. Um, and it's just so very refreshing, and we've definitely enjoyed this wine. Other members of my family love the peach wine. So why don't we take a taste, Mom? And now that you've had a Chardonnay tasting, see if you kind of taste anything a little bit different now in the beach peach. So we'll smell it first. See if you smell. See what we smell with this. I'm sure we know.
I smell the peach.
I smell the peaches too. I smell the peaches. Let's take a taste.
I probably wouldn't taste the Chardonnay if you hadn't told me. But now I noticed something behind the peaches.
Behind the peach.
It's Chardonnay.
It's Chardonnay. Do tell. But you know what though? Until I really started looking into this wine and researching this wine, I didn't realize it was Chardonnay either. But I knew that I'm familiar with a few peach wines, some sweeter than others. The thing I did always like about this one was that it wasn't super sweet, but now we know why. I do think it's really cool that Mermaid Winery, being a Virginia winery, incorporating Chardonnay into this wine, as it is the most planted grape in the state. So I think that's very interesting. But I really like this wine a lot. And it's good all the time. Particularly, I've had it out on the back porch. I've had it out on your deck. I've had it at Mermaid Winery. It's a very refreshing wine. If you love the peach flavor and listen, the Chardonnay isn't overpowering in this wine. Don't let her fool you with that. But it definitely takes some of the sweetness out so that it's not like toothache sweet, right? We don't always need candy sweet wine, but I think it's a very refreshing peach. The flavor's good. And I think that anyone would enjoy a nice cold glass of the peach wine from Mermaid Winery. And I poured a pretty large amount in this glass. But if you want to pour yours out before we move on to the second wine, you certainly can. Or you can finish it. I'll let you decide. I'm finishing mine. I'm not wasting wine. All right, very good. So that was very interesting. Now she's going to be in her feelings about this wine now. I don't know if she's going to like it as much because it's Chardonnay. All right, very good. Oh, she's having water, y'all. So first sweet wine tasting was of the peach wine from Mermaid Winery. I encourage you all that live in Virginia, may pass through the Tidewater area from time to time. Definitely stop through. The wine is delicious there. She makes other kinds of wine as well. You can do a flight and taste some of the other things being done. But I would probably say that her peach wine's one of my favorites. All right, so let's move on to our second featured wine, which I will admit is not a Virginia wine. It's actually a wine produced in Delaware. I thought it'd be nice to kind of end this series of the podcast with a wine that was actually produced in the state in which I live. So this wine, and we're going to go ahead and kind of pour it in the glass here. Mom, that could have been a big pour, so if you don't want to pour the whole thing, you don't have to. But this wine is produced by excuse me, y'all. Too much sweet wine. Produced by Harvest Ridge Winery in Delaware. And this wine is called Blue Hen Blue. It is a combination of blueberry and Concord grapes. So we already know this is probably we can see, first of all, it's definitely dark in color. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty rich with that combination, and it's definitely going to have, I would suspect, a lot of fruitiness to it. Delaware is the first state, and the name of this wine, of course, paying homage to the hens. But I felt like this would be a good way to finish. Blueberry wine is definitely a beloved wine. I think no matter where you go, people often ask if you have a blueberry. It is typically very sweet. This is definitely going to be sweeter than the peach wine that we had. And blueberry wine is, I think, also a good base sometimes for sangria. If you're a sangria lover and you like making your own sangria, blueberry wine is typically a good base for you to make your sangria as well. So it's really nice. Delaware doesn't have a lot of wineries. Harvest Ridge may be one of only a few that I'm aware of in the state. Delaware isn't necessarily known for wine making, but we've got some good breweries, couple good distilleries too that aren't far, that are doing some interesting things. But I was very intrigued by this wine, and I was hoping that you would really, really like it. So let's see what we smell. I know the other one, it was a lot of peach in the nose, right? So let's swirl this one and see what we're thinking or what we're smelling.
Oh, I smell grapes.
Oh, I smell grapes. For just like grape bubble gum, Mom. Doesn't
Yeah.
it seem like
Yes.
bazooka grape
It's-
bubble gum?
Oh, it's definitely grape.
It's
I don't
definitely
smell any
grape.
blueberries.
No blueberry. It's a lot of grape though. The Concord
Lots
grape
of
is
grape.
coming through, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, y'all. Sometimes, Mom, when you hear people talk and describe what they smell in wine, the things that they smell, it can seem confusing to people when they hear notes of pencil shavings and tar and things like that. Sometimes that's how people describe the smells when it comes to wine. But I think it's interesting because everybody's nose is a little different, and I think it's cool when you smell things in the way that you describe them. Like, I seriously thought of bazooka grape gum when I smelled this.
I thought
Oh,
of the
my.
grapes on the grapevine that we used to have in our backyard. You know, those dark
Yes.
blue grapes
Yes.
that grew on that grapevine.
Granny and Granddaddy had grapevines at that
Grapevines, and it
house
smelled exactly like
like
that.
this. Well, I tell you what, let's give a taste to the Blue Hen Blue and see what we think.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
She likes that, y'all. She likes that
It
sweetness.
doesn't taste like wine.
No.
You probably don't like it.
There is a place for all kinds of wine. And so I know people that would say this is probably like they need a straw because it's grape juice.
Yeah, strong grape juice.
Strong
That's what
grape
it tastes.
juice.
That's what
Strong
it
grape
tastes.
juice.
Strong
So,
grape juice.
If you love strong grape juice, the Blue Hen Blue is for you.
It's stronger than that fermented cherry juice.
Yes, it absolutely is. It is fermented cherry juice. Tell us about that, Mom. You said it. Tell us about it.
We had a cherry tree, and Mom would layer cherries and sugar in a jar and put them on the shelf for months. And when she opened the jar again, it would be fermented cherry juice. I guess we could call that cherry wine, huh?
The beginnings of wine in my life.
You never tasted
No,
it.
I never tasted that. I don't ever remember tasting that, but I remember that, and I remember Granddaddy. But we'll talk about that another time. We'll talk
yes.
about that another time. Very good. So this is you're right, Mom. This is
Strong grape juice.
Strong grape. This is pretty sweet, but again, there's wine for everyone. So if you're a fan of blueberry, but you love Concord grapes and the combination of the two, and it is, Mom. This is it's rich.
Grape
Like,
juice.
it's rich, and there's definite fruitiness in this as well. And so I would imagine. Listen, just thinking about this would pair so good with just like chocolate. I participated in a pairing one time with a dessert wine though, but this would be really good with Oreos. I know it sounds strange, but this would be good with some Oreo cookies. Trust me on that. Next time I'll have that. But it is definitely fruity, lots of great smell, flavor, taste, all of that. Um, it could be used for communion wine.
I was thinking that.
It could be. This could be communion wine for someone. The Blue Hen Blue, but again, another a really nice sweet wine if that's what you like. Available from Harvest Ridge Winery, and it's been enjoyable. So listen, before I get to May's message, I asked you this, and I'm hoping that we can kind of wrap up this series that's really been dedicated to Catherine Portia. What words, Mom, would you use to best describe Granny?
How much time do we have left?
The producer is saying wrap it up. No.
Oh, okay.
He's not.
Okay. Some of these aren't single words,
Okay.
but she had strong faith in God. I think that kind of led everything that she did. She had strong faith in God. She was a woman of prayer. She was a loving wife, mother, and granny. She was energetic, social, loved being around people, hilarious, loved making people laugh, loyal, helpful, an excellent cook. And I'll stop there. But she was all of those.
She was. You I mean, you hit it, and you're right. We could sit here and talk about so many things with her and so many things that described her, but
Outspoken.
Yes, outspoken for sure. You're absolutely right about that. All of those things. Well, Mom, I really I want to thank you. And there'll never be enough words for me to thank you for this. You're my number one fan for sure. But when I asked you this, you didn't even hesitate, except probably wondering how you would do, because as you said earlier, you've never done anything like this before. But I want to thank you because I just couldn't think of another way to start this and to really lay the foundation for Portia's Place without having you here with me. So I love you. I thank you. I honor you in all ways. And I really appreciate the support. And I couldn't have done this without you. So thank you for always, always, always being there. And before I move on to May's message, do you have any parting words? Because, you're going to, I don't know, Mom, you kind of might have a little celebrity status after this.
Really?
I don't know, Mom. I think you could.
Well, first I'll say you're welcome for all of the thank yous. You are quite welcome. I am honored that you would have me as your first guest. And you are correct. I didn't hesitate, but I did have several thoughts on how am I going to do this. But I love nothing better than supporting you. And this is a dream that you've had for a while. And I am so happy to see it coming into fruition. So, I just pray all the best for you in this endeavor. And again, thank you for including me in your launch of Portia's Place.
Portia's Place.
Thank you.
She's my favorite girl, y'all. All right, so.
Well, she's my favorite.
All right, so.
Anyway.
May's message. It's been such good conversation. We've talked so much about a lot of different people But I want to say to each of you that are watching this, be a light. Everyone can be a light in this world. In a world where so often it seems as though there's so much darkness and pain and even just bad things happening all around you. I challenge you to be a light in the darkness. Always find a way to shine. Always find a way to bring your light to others. Every day my desire is to be a light in the world. I never know where it's going to happen. I never know where I may have an opportunity to do that. But I challenge each of you to do that. A smile, a kind gesture. So many people are suffering in ways that are just unimaginable. But you have an opportunity every day to choose to be a light. And I promise you that you being a light will bring light to you. You won't even understand how it's happening. But making that choice to brighten the world around you, that world includes you. You will be a part of that light. I thank you for joining us on this third episode of Portia's Place. If you've been here for all three, I thank you. If this is your first, go back and watch the other two. I hope that you hang around. I'm so excited about the next guest that you'll be seeing. And we're just going to continue to have a good time, have some great conversation. We're going to spread love, and we're going to have some great wine. So cheers to you all. Thank you for hanging out with me at Portia's Place, where you'll never wine alone.